Well, the way we played in the last 6 minutes, probably 4 minutes, we set basketball back at least 10 years. It was mind-boggling, the things that we just did. And, you know, we got the win. Eric hits the big shot. James was incredible. I mean, just a lot of good things. Our defense was great in the third quarter, and then some reason we kind of fell back out. We're up 13. We kind of, went back to what we did in the first half. So, anyway, it's a good win. We'll go forward.
Harden fell short of the 62, the record at the Garden, but talk about his two-way performance.
I mean, the guy's just good, and sometimes it's a little hard for the other guys, because he scores every time. And it's like, okay, don't get a layup, do something. I don't know what else you do, but we just got to be mentally tough and strong and enjoy what he's doing and picking your opportunities. And like Eric does a heck of a job. I don't know how many he had tonight, 20 or something like that, but he's been playing great. So just have to have mental toughness that, he's going to score a lot and you might not touch it for a couple times, but when it comes your way, you're going to have to do something with it.
What was your thinking after Trier hit the go-ahead layup there? You didn't call timeout. Gordon came down with the three. Was that just not to allow New York to set up their defense?
Yeah. Yeah, and there's plenty of time. I mean, I got the guy's going to get to the rim every time. What am I going to do is say, oh, let me take the ball out of James' hands or Eric's, then take it out, call a timeout, put it back in their hands, the exact same spot they were, and if they could get it. So to me, it makes no sense to call a timeout. We don't ever call timeouts, and we just go with it if there's enough time.
Ciao Mike, sei soddisfatto della prestazione dei ragazzi stasera e soprattutto dell'incredibile James Harden, 61 punti?
Sì, lui è stato incredibile come hai detto, ma sicuramente il nostro gioco è così, non era molto forte oggi. Ma eravamo un po' fuori di testa tante volte, ma abbiamo vinto, andiamo alle prossime partite.
All right, Mike D'Antoni in any language. This was spectacular tonight. Houston win. We got another segment to go here, Sekou, to talk more about the Beard, the reigning MVP, making a case to win back-to-back MVPs. He has been flat out amazing. Crunch time coming right back.
36 now for Harden.
Just showing out. Buying now that
showing out.
He gonna get in that top 5?
Yeah, I think he is. 11 of 21 from the field. He's already taken 12 free throws. You just saw him miss 2. That's a real rarity for him. And the Rockets trail by 5.
Should have 38.
63 to 58. That's exactly right. If my math is correct, yeah.
Carry the 1.
What? Just because I haven't seen you since you were, the thing happened.
Yeah.
With the ankle and the surgery.
My incident.
Yes. Well, what is most remarkable to you about this stretch that Harden is on right now?
Wow. One, we've never seen it before. And so it's hard sometimes to put it in perspective. When you look at the roster right now, not having Chris Paul, no Capella, Gordon, and they're winning with it. Again, they're not blowing teams out, but they're competitive. He's moved them into playoff contention when they weren't prior to that. It's remarkable. And you've heard other people say that. Like, to me, I think he's the best offensive player, complete offensive player I've seen in this era. When you factor in how great a passer he is, he's I'd argue he's one of the 4 best passers in the game in terms of his vision. And it's not always about your assists. It's about your ability to make all the passes and see all the passes. He can do that on top of his uncanny ability to score it. And he's doing this at a time where you are completely loaded to him. You're not as focused on anybody else out there on the floor. They don't have other creators or facilitators that you're that worried about. And they're not even shooting it well from the three-point range.
I was going to say, they don't even have the arsenal of three-point shooters that Mike D'Antoni would prefer.
I mean, it's just pretty remarkable to see what he's been doing over this stretch. And then again, the sustained level of it. Guys can go 4 or 5 games, 10 games. Right. And you start getting up to 30.
He's at 21 in a row for 30 points now.
That's just crazy.
He's averaging 50 over his last 4, and that number may go up.
It may go up.
It may go up
tonight.
I mean, it's just been remarkable.
He's just, in an era of unique offensive talents, when you think about Steph and Kevin Durant, Russell Westbrook, LeBron, all these different guys, Anthony Davis, Giannis now, you know, a 30-point scorer potentially without the aid of the three-point shot. Somehow he sticks out in that crowd, which is really remarkable. In a point of emphasis where you got to get your hands off a guy. You know, to be able to stick out in the crowd in this era is what's really crazy, and to do it in the variety of ways. I know he gets, this idea that he's a three-point shooter or is he just a jump shooter. He can get to the basket whenever he wants to.
Sure.
He can get in the lane and finish. He's big enough, strong enough to finish around the rim.
And he'll take that if that's what you want.
Yes, I mean, so it's like the fact that he can get it in whatever ways he wants to, not dictated to him by the defense, is what sticks out to me. And the fact that you do it night after night after night after night, right now when your team needs it most, when they were 14th, and then he moves them into that top group, that gives you an understanding of just how grueling a process it is for him to do this night after night, which also in turn makes me shake my head at what Wilt Chamberlain did however many times he did.
65 straight 30-point games.
Which is just like, you know.
Well, but to your point, though, the thing about even in Wilt's case, he had a significant physical advantage.
Right.
For most people. You know, James Harden, he's not the next level athlete either.
Right.
You know, so for him, it's really the skill and just the mindset. I mean, to go out and do this every night, like knowing going into the game, some guys might every now and then you feel like, man, I could get 40 tonight.
Right.
He goes in there again like, I gotta get
it. Yep.
Right. Right. No, it's been that way, and I believe if I heard correctly, he's hit 11 baskets tonight, none of which are assisted. So that's 236 points now, without a single assisted basket over the last 5 games.
That in another era or in another place that would be called gunning, but it's a necessity.
Yeah.
For this team right now. And if you're somebody else on that roster, how are you going to facilitate for a guy who needs no facilitation? I mean, he doesn't need anybody else to get him a shot.
Right.
He's a one-man band in terms of creating, executing, He doesn't need anybody else to get him shots. That's the beautiful thing about when they have a healthy Chris Paul, is that they can actually take turns. Chris Paul creating for everybody else or himself, James creating for everybody else or himself, but you can pass that baton back and forth between two of the greatest of their eras and maybe of all time.
Think about the shots he takes as well. I don't know how many players in NBA history have ever executed the blueprint of the organization better than James Harden. When you think about Daryl Morey at the forefront of analytics, and what they want, as you know by now, is layups and dunks. They want three-pointers. They want free throws. That's all James Harden takes. He gets to the rim and finishes. He gets to the foul line and finishes, or he knocks down threes.
Yeah, and he does it efficiently as well. I mean, again, in doing it to Sekou's point where, the defense is not concerned with the other guys. So like, whereas if that guy's a three-point shooter, man, I got to be a step closer to him. I want to help, but I know I got to get back to him. Well, they don't have that issue. Like, they're generally loading to him, and he's still good enough to get beyond 2 defenders and still create good opportunities.
All right, 36 tonight for James Harden at the half in New York, where they trailed the Knicks 63-58. Keeping our eye on everything else around the league. Shaquille O'Neal was an unstoppable force in the NBA the moment he stepped onto the court. Not only was he named an All-Star as a rookie, but selected as a starter as well. Ro Parrish revisits Shaq's first All-Star appearance back in 1993 in this episode of Storytime with Shaq.
At center is the first rookie to start in an All-Star game since 1985. Standing over 7 feet tall and weighing 300 pounds, he plays well beyond his 20 years. You know him simply as the Shaq. From the Orlando Magic, Shaquille O'Neal.
1993, Utah. Your first All-Star game, making it as a rookie. Number one, what were your first impressions when you get there? Did you expect to make the All-Star game as a rookie?
Well, I expected to make the All-Star game, but I wasn't expecting to be starting. First of all, before I got there, terrified.com.
Why?
Because, all the guys that I dreamed of being, guys that I looked up to, I'm finally there with them. There was one moment at the All-Star game that kind of made me relax a little bit. We were doing the team picture, and the guy puts his hand on my shoulder, and I looked down, some big hands. I'm like, who is this? And I looked up, and it was the great Michael Jordan. And he said, I'm proud of you, big fella. You're going to be a great player. So once he said that, the steam just like, but after that, I kind of learned how to be an all-star performer because it's different. And, you know, it's kind of similar to my thought process of putting on the show for the fans. But at an all-star game, you got to do extra. Come down, cross people up, dribble between the legs, better slam dunks, maybe shoot a three. So after that, I became sort of an all-star expert.
So looking back at all those players that you spoke about that you were in awe of, you know you had that Michael Jordan moment, but talk about Pippen, Isaiah, Malone, Stockton, Barkley, Robinson. Are you able to take all that in at that moment? Do you realize how much greatness you're around when you see all those players out there with you?
It was just solidifying the beginning of my greatness. Because when you come in as a rookie and everybody says you're great, and then I made the top 50 team, a lot of people was upset about that. So in my mind, I had to back it up. So by me getting selected to the All-Star game, that was sort of backing it up. I had to put up big numbers, sort of backing it up. But, you know, I was just saying to myself when I was sitting in the locker room, damn, I made it. Medium-level juvenile delinquent who didn't start his freshman or sophomore year, 35-1, San Antonio Cole High School, lose the state championship on free throw line, redeemed myself senior year, 36-0, 3 years at LSU, #1 pick. Everyone says you're the next greatest thing. Maybe this is the start of me being what everybody says I can be. When you're just sitting there watching, you just automatically put yourself in those scenarios, and I used to do it all the time. And then finally, look up, and I see the real Charles Barkley walk by. I see the real John Stockton, the real Karl Malone, the guy who I grew up watching, the Admiral, David Robinson, Pat Riley with his $6,000 suit and his silky tie and the beautiful hair. Like, I'm sitting next to all these people, so maybe what everybody is saying that this young kid will be a great player, maybe it's true.
The 2019 All-Star starters will be revealed tomorrow night on TNT at 7 o'clock Eastern Time. You both were part of the esteemed media panel.
I don't know about esteemed. Yeah.
Calling it esteemed media panel that represents 25% of the total ballot when it comes to the starters. So you both had to submit Eastern Conference starting five and a Western Conference starting five. Your Eastern Conference starters are pretty similar. Both include Kyrie Irving, Giannis Antetokounmpo, Kawhi Leonard, and Joel Embiid. They are identical except for what I'm going to call the second guard spot. Kemba Walker for Greg. Sekou, you've got Bradley Beal. This being a TV segment, you're now obliged to argue about it.
I mean, listen, I think both those guys are worthy. I just looked at and weighed heavier the work Bradley Beal has done since John Wall went down. A Wizards team, GA, that was out of it, out of people's consciousness. We had kind of written them off. John Wall goes down, Bradley Beal is playing fantastic. I think he should be an all-star either way.
Yeah.
He could be a starter. You could have him be one of the reserves. It doesn't matter. As long as he's on that team, I think you're doing right by him.
Yeah, and I agree. I think both are going to make the team. I went with Kemba. One, he's been great from the start of the season, and two, as of today, they're a playoff team.
Right.
And so to me, I do think, because their stats are actually very similar. Yeah. But I just think, ultimately you want to reward success, too, in winning. So that's why, for me, I ended up going with Kemba. But I'm like you, Sekou. I think both guys are all-stars with how well they performed this season under adverse conditions for both teams.
I actually put Ben Simmons on my ballot, and I think you could make an argument for three of those guys.
I think he'll be there, too.
If you're rewarding winning, Ben Simmons.
Yeah. So the winning argument, that's kind of where I felt.
No question.
In the Western Conference, again, you agree on four of them. Steph Curry, James Harden, Kevin Durant, and Paul George. Greg has the Kings. Sekou went with the Brown.
Yeah, I just looked at the fact, again, it goes back to before LeBron went down, they were a 4 seed. With that same team, in essence, that we saw from a season ago, and his numbers had been off the charts again. And in Anthony Davis, as much as I love him, again, he's going to be an all-star. I just thought overall the fact that the team success just hasn't been there. That was the one area where I had an issue. And the interesting thing for me, the guy that probably is more deserving based on team success is Jokic.
Yeah.
Because Jokic has been incredible this year. So, again, he's definitely going to be on the team.
For sure.
But I think, again, part of this is who do you want to see as well when you talk about the starters. And
Right.
so I ultimately went with LeBron.
Yeah, and if Anthony Davis was any less of an unbelievable, freak of nature in this league, it would be easier to leave him off somebody like this. I just figured when you look at his body of work, independent of the context of the Pelicans' struggles this season, he's always up here on that next level of the handful of guys in the league who can do what he does on a regular basis. Hard to leave him off, but of course, people will say, well, why are you penalizing LeBron for missing games when you didn't penalize Steph Curry for the same thing?
Yeah, why are you doing that?
So there is a part of me that kind of scratches my head and says, do you knock LeBron for being out? Is it a recency bias because he's been out lately? Because nobody's going to have a Western Conference All-Star starting five without LeBron James. It wouldn't make sense. But, of course, I went there.
Except for you.
Except you did. And yet you did it anyway.
I know.
Didn't you?
I figured somebody had to shake it.
There you go.
I'm with you on AD, though. I mean, some guys, the numbers, the talent is just so overwhelming, you almost overlook.
Shout out to Paul George, though, for playing
Oh, yeah.
his way onto that list.
Man,
He's been awfully good this year for the Thunder.